Hello and welcome back to my craft room on this cold wintry day here in my part of the UK. Good day to be cozied up in our craft rooms doing something fun. So a couple of days ago I did a video introducing my own design stamp set, my Georgie. I'll take you to the desk in a minute and we'll have a proper look, and I promised I'd come back and show you a few different ways of using it. I'm making this video on Sunday the 7th of December. Yesterday evening we had our last pre-Christmas Saturday night in live stream over on YouTube, and I gave one of these sets of stamps away along with some other goodies to go with it, and that is going over to Dawn in Belize. Well done, Dawn. Dawn was so keen to have one of these sets. I was delighted when her name came up. The remaining 19, that's all I've got. I won't be getting any more. The remaining 19 of these stamp sets will be going up for sale, hopefully if I get myself sorted today. They will be in my Etsy shop tomorrow, the 8th of December, and I will put this video out and immediately the stamp sets will go live. So if you're seeing this video and you're interested in getting one of the stamp sets, I would say pause it now, go to the link which will be in the description box, which will take you to my Etsy shop, and grab yours now, because it's very unlikely I'll get any more done. And I don't know, a few people seem to be very keen to get hold of one, which is really exciting. It will be amazing. I would really, it would make me very happy to see what other people would do with this stamp set. So I'm going to be sharing a few ideas, not just the ideas I'm going to share now. You know, you don't have to buy my stamp to use them. You can use them with whatever stamp sets you've already got. And you know, they're lovely for using in scrapbooking and card making, all those kind of paper craft things, junk journaling, so many things you can do. But of course you can stamp on any surface, you just have to use the right ink for the surface you're stamping on and the whatever products you want to use to colour it with. So today I'm going to do something a bit different. I'm going to be stamping on fabric and then stitching into it, because since I designed these stamps a few years back now, I've actually got more into stitching and more away from art, and just recently I've decided I'm going to go back more, just make more time to spend on art again. Various different things happened to point me in that way, and then I came across this stack of stamps that I had left from a few years back when I designed them. And I don't know about you, but the hobbies that you enjoy kind of change and morph over the years, don't they? And I love when you come back to things that you used to love and haven't done for a while. I love when they come together and cross over, and you can kind of merge one or two hobbies together and use the same supplies for a different hobby. Make the most of them. So that is kind of what this one is about today. So let me take you to the desk and we'll have a better look at the stamp set. I'm not going to go all into it because I did that in the introductory video, and I'll put all of these on the Georgie playlist, which I'll link in the description box as well, so you can catch up if you want to. So this is the stamp set as you'll get it if you buy one. It's a clear polymer stamp. Again, I won't go into the ins and outs of how to use them because I did that in the first video. I'm going to send them all out with 2 or 3 sheets of this masking paper. To use this stamp set you do need some kind of something to create a little mask. If you haven't got this, you can use these sticky notes like this, something that is easy peel. These ones are so old the stickies go funny. Yeah, the kind of, you know, post-it note type of things. You can also get this kind of post-it note on a roll type of stuff like this. So it's very low tack. As I say, I'm going to put 2 or 3 sheets in each stamp set that I send out as well. And these have got, so you stamp on the white part, and then the yellow is the backing, the carrier sheet. So you could make the masks once, put them back on the carrier sheet and use them several times before they finally give up their sticky. The reason why the legs and arms are separate is to enable you to do different poses, and you can put all of these elements together in different ways. And part of what I thought about when I was designing this set is that these little elements will work nicely with the kind of whimsical girl, but also on their own as useful little motifs in all kinds of projects. That was my thought. So yeah, there are different ways of varying it up, and I will come back and go into those more over the next couple of weeks. But here's a few different ones. Here's a little shorty one I did where I put the glasses on. Here's one where I changed the hair and the length of the dress. This one is pretty standard. I just completed the hair as a, you know, in the long style. Different hair again, different position. This one I actually took the ink off of the face before I stamped it so I could put my own eyes in. I should have used a thinner pen. It looks thicker than the but that's just to give you the idea. This one I went mad and did all curly hair. So this was just experimenting. I will come back and do some examples of junk journaling and card making and things with these. I've got lots of different ideas. You can cut them out and decoupage with them, stamp them several times. You know, the daisies, for example, if you stamp that 3 times and cut some of the petals out and fluff them up, you can make them look quite realistic. It's really fun. It's also fun to stamp parts of the image onto pattern paper and cut it out. Did I keep any of those? No, I think I've ended up binning them. But yeah, you can cut the hair or the dress or the shoes or the butterflies or whatever, stamp them onto pattern paper. So the set I sent to Dawn, I put a little pad of pattern paper in with her prize, and then cut it out and stick it on, and that looks really cute as well. Yeah, so many different ways of having fun with this stamp set, and I just did these just to give you an idea of how much variation you can get. That's the set. That's the stamp set as it will come. This is my one that I've already used, looking a bit grubby because it gets they get a bit stained with ink, but you don't need to worry about that. It won't affect their use at all. These things will last for years if you look after them properly. Years, and I've had some of them for years and years. You will also need some kind of a stamp block that needs to be big enough to fit that main part of the image on. I tend to use my stamping platform because I've got one. And they're really nice because they enable you to stamp, and then if the image isn't quite good enough, re-ink and stamp again, which is great. I showed that in the first video. But if you haven't got one of them, and I did put in with Dawn's parcel, I put a little miniature hinged stamping platform thing, so that would be nice for her to play with. But yeah, these kind of normal handheld stamping blocks are fine as well. That's all I had when I first did this stamp set. Just make sure it's big enough to take that part of the image all in one. That's the only important thing really. And they come in all different kinds, but yeah, any kind of stamping block will do. It's really handy to have if you're using a normal stamping block, or if you're going to stamp on fabric as I am today, or textured paper. It's really handy to have some kind of a stamping mat. Like this is one. It's just something it's quite firm, but it's got a little bit of give to it, and that just helps you to get a better image. There's also big size ones like this one that I've got here. I've used this for making holes in things as well, and it's really painty and stuff. But yeah, it's a really useful thing. If you haven't got anything like that, you could try an old mouse mat, or even a few layers of fabric or a piece of felt will probably do it. Just something. You just don't want it too squishy because that will spoil the line as well. But yeah, just a little bit of give underneath will help you get a better impression. Also, of course, you'll need ink. Now, I've got 2 kinds to show you here. I like these brands, but you don't necessarily have to go with these brands. But this one is a dye ink. This is what I've put in with Dawn's prize. And this is great because you can use alcohol markers over it and it won't smudge at all. You can go straight over the lines and nothing will happen to them. So that's really good. But it's no good if you wanted to use, say, watercolours or Inktense or something with it. For doing that, you need a pigment ink, and this is one example of a pigment ink. This is one I really, really love, especially on fabric. So if you want to use something water-based to colour it, then you need a pigment ink, really. It's probably handy to have both because then, you know, whatever you're doing. There's also things like Stays-On, which is like a kind of a permanent ink, which you can use on other kinds of surfaces as well. So between those 3, you could stamp on anything, I think. We'll be using, have I got it in here? Yeah, a pigment liner. It looked like I might have had a bit too thick of a line though, so I might find myself a finer one than this. maybe a 0.3 would be better to match the line of the stamp. So a 0.3 liner. You want just a fine liner about the same thickness as the stamp, the lines of the stamp, just to fill in if you miss a little bit and you want to fill it in, or for completing the hair however you want it to go, or whatever. It's just handy to have that. And today I'm going to be using alcohol based markers to do some of the colouring on my image before I start stitching. I've also got some scraps of fabric because I'm going to stamp some of the dress onto scraps of fabric and cut out and apply to the image. I'm going to stamp onto some just plain smooth white cotton, and I've got an embroidery hoop. I think that'd be nice to work on and also a nice way to present it. I've done some practicing with my spirit markers to get some which way opposite that way, to get some different skin tones and to practice how much the ink is going to bleed. So here I've drawn a line down. I think you can see a definite line there just to see how much it bled outside. And the trick is to stay just inside of the line and allow for a little bit of bleeding. Alcohol-based markers evaporate off and dry much more quickly, so they spread less than the water-based ones. I did do a couple of experiments just to show you. So here's one. It's interesting actually, that's the wrong side of it and it gives quite a nice soft image. This was the right side, so you could use whichever you wanted. Now I've made a mistake here which I learnt from. So you can see that the colour has bled slightly outside of the lips there. And I think that's because it was still wet. The face was still wet. And so then when just the same as if you were using watercolour paints on paper, if you put your watercolour paint too close to another area that's still wet, it will bleed. One will bleed into the other, and it's exactly what happened here. Because for this one I was using water-based felt pens to colour it. So yeah, I learnt from that, but mostly it hasn't. I just kept slightly inside of the lines. The water-based things do take longer to dry, so they've got more time to bleed out, so I just kept inside the lines and allowed for that really, and that seems to, as you can see, seems to have worked pretty well. Another thing I learnt was that when I stretched the fabric over my embroidery frame, it slightly enlarged it, so the dress needed to be bigger, so I remembered to cut the dress a little larger, a little outside the line. So these are two different looking ones, and I thought I would try the hair in different ways. So perhaps with this one I might do I'll probably colour the base of the hair, but then I want to cover it with stitching, and I might do some plaits where I allow the embroidery floss that I'm using to, I'll just end up with kind of strands of it coming off the page, off the surface, and then plait them together. So I've got three-dimensional plaits there. That's the idea I've got in my head. I think that would be really fun. I could definitely add some beading and twinkles to this. I could put a little trim on her dress and some beads for buttons, you know, whatever. I could make a little necklace. That would be really fun. So yeah, I think that's what I'll do with her hair. And then I wanted to do another one in a completely different style. I'll try a different skin tone as well. And maybe with this one I'll use French knots and bullion knots and create a lovely curly hairstyle, which I think would be really fun. And perhaps as this one's got the butterflies, I'll make this one the musical notes, or perhaps this one will be more of using the hearts, or both. And I quite like the idea of including some words which I could write in my heat erasable pen and then stitch. If I use hearts and musical notes on this one, it could be all you need is love. Love is all you need on there. I think that'd make a nice little gift thing as well then. And there's a lovely quote which I'm going to have to look up, and I don't know if I've got room to put it all on here, but I thought it would fit beautifully, which is I think it goes, love is like a butterfly, it lands where it pleases and it pleases where it lands. Oh, cute. So something like that I could, yeah. But those were just practice runs, and this was practice runs, and this was using water-based felt pens that I've had for donkey's years. I've had them for so long I can't believe they're still going. A couple of them were starting to feel a little bit dry. They're these ones, Whispers Strokes, and they don't make them anymore. I can't find them anyway. But I have seen a couple of other sets that look a bit like this. God, they've been worth their weight in gold, this. Yeah, these. But yeah, for today's experiment, I'm going to This was done with the spirit markers that I'm going to use today, so I've got different ones here. These came out of a squaller box ages ago, so I hope they aren't too dried up to use, but it should be quite good at giving you a few different skin tones. And then I've got these tri-blend Spectrum Noir ones as well, which are nice because you've got light, medium, dark in the same colour in each pen. So first thing is to get stamping, and it's probably daft to show you this the first time on fabric, but hey ho. I did kind of show the basic on paper in the first video, so let's do something different this time. It can be handy as well, even if you're using a stamping platform, to have one little smaller size stamping block just to put the smaller pieces on. So if you're just dotting butterflies or hearts around, it's probably it's probably easier just to have them on a small block. So I might dig out a small block to use for that. In fact, I'm going to do that before I get started. I can't find my little I don't know what I've done with it. I can't find it without turning the place upside down. I've got this long narrow one which will be handy, and I can use the other side of this one because it'll cling on there, the stamp will cling on there fine, so I can use that. Oh yeah, I put these to remind me as well. So I've got because I love both these inks so much, I've got the re-inkers for both of them, which is really handy. In fact, I might as well re-ink my Memento one now because that's beginning to dry up a little bit. They last for so long. But yeah, if you've got a favourite ink like that, it is well worth getting these re-inkers. It's so much cheaper. Because the fabric of these, the base of these, it's not that horrible spongy stuff that breaks down after a while. It's the same with both of them. They're made with this very densely packed kind of fabric, which just lasts and lasts and lasts. Distress inks are the same, because with some I know when I've had the kind of spongy based ones, I've had them for a while, they're still wet with ink, and it's really frustrating because you can't use them, because when you go to use them, the foamy stuff is all kind of broken down. So yeah, with those that doesn't happen, so it's worth getting the re-inkers, definitely, because these things are expensive to buy. You want to make them last as long as you can. Okay, let's make myself a bit of space here. It's going to be slightly awkward stamping on the fabric in my stamping platform, but I'm still going to do it because it does give me the advantage of being able to re-stamp if I'm not happy with the image. So I know that I want this to be pretty central. I think that's about the central point. I want my girl to kind of be there. Okay, these things come with these magnets to hold your surface in place. But with when you use it with card or paper, you can also butt them up against the edge, and that's not so easy with fabric, so I need to be careful. And I've also got my reconstituted wet wipe. I don't believe in buying these baby wipes and things anymore. I just think they're not very environmentally friendly, but I found a dried up old packet, and if you like just wet them in water, you can reuse them, and they're quite a good texture for doing this. So I thought, well, there's no point in just putting them in the bin, I may as well use them as they're there. So. But yeah, a clean damp rag, just have something by you, cleaning the stamp in between. So if you're using a stamping block, I should have showed that in case anybody hasn't seen. With these, they're so easy, you don't have to cut around them or anything like that. You just peel them off, peel them gently and carefully, especially the first time, because it will be stuck quite hard and you don't want to tear the stamp or something. The back of it is naturally sticky. If it starts to lose that stick, you can just wash the stamp in warm soapy water, leave it to dry, and it will come back to stickiness again, and that just lasts indefinitely. I haven't had any that have gone unsticky yet, to be fair. So yeah, you would just put it like that, so sticky side down and the kind of textured side, the line with the lines upwards. That's all you would do if you're using a stamping block. But because I'm using a stamping platform, this is in effect is my stamping block, so I'm going to put this face down where I want it to be. So did the other side, yeah, that's about in the middle. So I'm going to put her there. Put her down. And now when I close my stamping platform, it picks it up because of the sticky. And then I'm using my Memento, so this is my dye ink, so I know this will be alright with my alcohol markers. if I was wanting to use my ink tents or other water-based watercolour paints or whatever, I'd be using a pigment ink instead. So now I tend to always take the ink pad to the stamp and just tap, rather than the other way around. Just tap all over to coat that and just press it down. You don't want to press too hard with these, you know, you want to make sure you've got contact all over. You can use one of these things if you like, especially if your wrists and things tend to ache a bit like mine do, but don't press over hard on it with these stamps, because the fine lines can just kind of wobble about otherwise, and you ruin the line of it. So better to, especially if you've got a stamping platform, you can do it again, so better to go lightly once and lightly again. Do it twice or 3 times. That's not gone very well at all, but I can stamp again. Might be because I've just re-inked it. If you're stamping on fabric or a bit paper with a bit more texture, it definitely helps to have the stamping mat underneath as well. Just a bit more this time. That's better. I might go once more. I think my ink pad was getting a little bit dry, this one. This worked beautifully first time, just one stamp with the VersaFine ink, because that's a new one. So yeah, I won't put any more of the re-inker on it yet, because it probably hasn't fully gone through yet, but I might do later if it keeps seeming dry. So yeah, I mean, I've got all these gadgets, I've got them, so I'll use them, but you definitely don't know. You can just do this with a handheld ink block. Just make sure it's well inked up, because you won't be able to go back over again like I am. But if you just miss the odd little bit of a line, that's where the fine liner comes in. You can just fill it in, that's fine. So I'm finished. I'm happy with that image now. I don't need it to be super dark, but before I wipe off my stamp, I'm going to use some of my masking paper. So these are the sheets I'm going to put in with the stamp sets, and I'm just going to put that there because I want now to make a mask for the dress. So I'm just going to put this here where I know it will land over the dress. And I'm going to stamp again, and you can see that's given me perfectly good enough line to make a little mask with. So I'm going to cut this out. Let's just cut it like that first. And then before I put my stamp away, I haven't got enough room to move here, it's a bit of a mare. I'm just going to give it a wipe over with this just damp cloth. So if you come to use it again later in the same session, you don't want any ink on there, because that'll mark the fabric before you're ready, or the paper before you're ready to stamp. So, and then I can just put it back on the carrier and leave that to dry. So now I'm going to cut out my little mask, and this is just to allow me to place the legs, so I don't need to worry about cutting around the neckline, that's not important. And I tend to cut just outside, on the outside edge of the line. So now I can peel off the, I'll keep that because I can put the mask back on that in a minute to keep it. So I've now got my tacky side there. I could pop that down into place on my stamped image, and now I can do the legs. Carefully move that over. With the legs, I tend to take a Sharpie pen, some kind of a permanent marker like a Sharpie, and I write right on there and left on there so that I know which leg is which. So I tend to put right because that's her right. But yeah, whichever way you want to think of it, just to make sure you get them the right way round, because there definitely is there definitely is a difference between the two legs, and if you get them the wrong way round, it just looks a bit off. So yeah, I tend to mark those. So this one's marked right, and that would be her right leg. So I'm going to put this one down here. And I think I'll just have her standing fairly normally this time. You can put the legs in all different positions to make it look like she's dancing. She can be doing jumping jacks if you like, or whatever. On one of mine I made the legs much shorter. I put them up like this to make them much shorter, so the whole girl was a little bit. I might make this one a little bit shorter. She'll fit more comfortably inside my hoop that way. So let's do that this time. Pick up the stamps and ink them up. Do have to work a bit harder when it's fabric. The VersaFine stamped so much better onto the fabric, but I want it to be, I want to use the Memento because I want to use spirit markers on here to colour this. That's it. I've just pressed it down a bit harder. It probably would help to have, as I mentioned earlier, a stamp mat underneath. I don't tend to bother with that when I'm using my stamping platform though. Right, and that is a good enough impression for me for what I want. But before I wipe the ink off of the leg stamps, before I put them away, I'm going to make a mask of the legs. It's a bit wasteful. Let's do that. Because I might want to stamp some details that go behind the legs in a minute. I might not in this case, but that's what I tend to get into the habit of doing. So I'll leave them there. I won't cut them out yet unless I decide I need them. Now I'm going to do the arms. The arms are identical but mirror images of each other. So you can put both arms palms up, both arms palm down, or one of each. Depends on what gesture you want to make. Because I want butterflies in this one, I'm going to put one of the arms out like this so she can be a butterfly can be landing on her hand. Oh, it's a bit too near the edge there because I've got this way over here. I think in that case I'm going to move this down a little bit. It wouldn't normally be a problem, it's just because I'm trying to make it, normally I'd have her over here, it's just because I'm trying to make it fit my embroidery hoop. So let's just put that down. I'll tell you what, I'll do it the other way around. I'll make this one the hand that's holding the butterfly, and this one could be the one that's sort of more down by her side. So that's the thing, you see, you can vary it up. This is down a bit harder this time as it's on the fabric. Give it a minute to soak in maybe. It is a bit harder work on fabric than it is on paper for sure, but it's not that difficult. There we go, that's fine. And again, if I wanted a mask of the arm, because I was going to do, sometimes if I'm working on paper, for example, I want to mask, you know, the whole girl, because I want to then do some ink, some background behind her. So I can do that and just apply distressings with my blending brushes, which is a really quick, easy way to do a background, and then take the mask off, and the girl is all is clear, you know. So yeah, and you might as well do that with the residual ink that's left on after stamping as end up inking it up again later on just to make a mask. So now this time I'm going to use the same arm, but I'm going to turn it over so that it's now part, so it's palm down there, palm up here. Oh look, I've made a mudge there. How did I do that? I must, oh look, I got ink on here. Well, that's annoying. Look at that. I'm going to have to put a butterfly or something there so it doesn't show. Oh, how annoying. So this arm is going to be out so she can be holding a butterfly. Now if I take the mask off now, you can see the image is all ready to fill in whichever way I choose, and I can put this mask back on the carrier and keep it to use another time. Save having to cut it out again. So I'm going to take her off of here now and do the rest of my stamping just on a block so that you can see how easy that is really. I think I'll use my, so this one is a dense foam. Like I say, you don't want something to see. I'm pressing quite hard with my fingers, really quite hard, as hard as I can, and you can see it's not it's not too squishy. You don't want it too squishy because that wouldn't work either, but just a little bit of yield will help you get a better impression, especially on things like fabric. So I'm so cross with myself about that. So now I need to think about how big the hoop is, not go outside of it. So this time I'm just going to stamp directly onto the fabric using just this handheld block, and it'll be fine. I could also stamp onto fabric and cut that out and apply it as well. Of course. Snag with repurposing this one with the red thing is, and I can't see where I'm going, so I'm going to have to wing it as it were, because I can't see what I'm doing. But that'll be okay. It's not crucial what angle it ends up anyway. So I'm just going to press it onto the fabric. I'm pressing it firmly but not too hard. I'm just going to leave it for a minute because I feel like the ink soaks into the fabric or something. That's my theory anyway. Okay, fingers crossed. Perfect, absolutely perfect. Actually, let's use this one this time so I can see where I'm going. I'm just thinking I'm going to do a couple of butterflies there to cover up that smudge. So this is where a lot of people prefer to take the stamp and do this on the stamp block. I prefer to take the ink block to the ink pad rather to the stamp. I just feel more in control and just gently tap it. It just doesn't get over inked that way. Right, let's put this deliberately right over the top of where that smudge is. Press it firmly. You want to try and not kind of rock too much with these. Squidge the line. Okay, fingers crossed. Yep, that's a perfect image. It just looks a bit funny because there was already that smudge there. And what I'm thinking is I'll just do that thing where, you know, they kind of go over the top of each other, don't they, butterflies? I could do one in fabric and cut it out and put there even. But let's assume I'm going to do that in stitching. Yeah. Okay. We're winging it. We're winging it. It's fine. Do you want to get that smudge off there because I don't want to transfer that to my fabric. And this time, let's go at that angle. And that's going to more or less cover up that smudge that I did. You'll never know it was there. You won't tell anyone, will you? And you can see, you know, obviously they've overlapped there, but that's okay because when I do the stitching, I'll make this one or other of them will be going over the top of the other, so that won't matter. That's fine. And let's just check. Yeah, but I think it's quite a nice little composition. And hopefully room for a bit of wordage, but I'll think about that later. Now, do I want this one to have the specks on? I've also got some stitchy details. So there's these which I tend to use for something for it to stand on, but you could use them for all sorts of things. And then there's the stitched kind of flourish here which can be used as a butterfly trail. I should have thought about that before I stamped. I should have done the trail before I did the butterfly. I think this is probably enough for now. I could, if I wanted to, I could add hearts down her dress or daisies. I've showed you examples of them earlier on. I've got the musical notes, but I don't have to use everything. I'm still wondering about whether to do the glasses. Let's keep it a bit more simple. So I also want to cut a dress for her, so I'm going to stamp the dress. I'm going to ink the whole thing, just ink the bit that I want. Oh, I ought to have a bit of waste paper there. Let's do that. Let's do it there. There just cut this dress out. So I'm going to cut it a little bit longer this time, a little bit at least outside of the lines, because I found last time that when I stretched my fabric over the embroidery hoop, it just made it a little bit bigger. So the dress didn't fit anymore. I mean, it would have been fine, I could have just put a bit of trim on it. So but I'll just cut it a little bit bigger this time, just slightly outside the line, because I'm going to be doing a line of stitching anyway. It's also very easy to make the dress longer, shorter, different shape, whatever, but I'll show that in upcoming videos. I did it in a couple of these. I made it longer in that one and covered it with a print in that one. In this case I've made the whole thing shorter just by making her legs very much shorter, and I think that was represented me because she's got glasses as well. I like the curly hair one, I think the best. I could, if I wanted to, I could also stamp the legs on a fabric and have a different colour of fabric for, you know, as if she's got tights on. That would be really nice as well. And definitely I could use little ditzy prints for the butterflies. I think it'd be cute. And actually her hair being in a printed fabric, that's really sweet. But I want to stitch the hair, so I think I might give her a little beady necklace as well. I think that would be fun. And definitely these ideas are things like, you know, if you look at the stamps you've got, you don't have to get one of my stamp sets. Look at what stamp sets you've already got. You know, maybe like me, you've moved on a little bit from paper crafting, but you've still got all these gorgeous stamps and dies and things. Look at, you know, and you're now more into stitching. Look at how you could use them in a stitched project instead, you know, and let them. It's just a way of getting more use out of those supplies that we've got stashed away. Okay, so that is the basis. That's all I need to do stamping wise. I want to do a bit of colouring now, and I'm going to bring my pens in. So yeah, I had a practice here doing different kinds of skin tones. I'm going to go for a sort of quite fair skinned, Caucasian-y looking here, I think, for this one today. But I want to do at least a couple other skin tones to experiment with. Depends on what I can do with the pens that I've got, really. And I can't remember now what I use for this one, which is a bit annoying. One of the advantages of using the alcohol markers is that it does dry very fast and evaporate away quite fast before it's got time to bleed out too much. I'm noticing, I didn't get this before, but I'm noticing a little bit of feathering of my line there. I'm not going to worry about it too much because I'm going to be stitching that anyway. So yeah, I don't think it's going to matter. Now I don't know whether I could do my colouring with this in the frame, that's what I did before, but probably don't really need to. Yeah, okay, so I'm going to use a mixture of these. So what are these actually called? Dusky Pink Rose, Almond, and then there's this Antique Pink. So I think that's going to work. Right, I'm going to start with this almond one, which is almost no colour at all, really. They're nice that they've got this quite a fine bullet point at one end and a chisel at the other. So the bullet points, you know, obviously it's handy for getting into the nooks and crannies. Now although I don't think this is going to bleed out too much, I'm going to keep slightly inside the lines. I might as well zoom in a little bit for this part, I think. Yeah, I'm going to keep slightly inside the lines to allow for that bleeding out. I can always fill in if I need to. There's like no colour on there, but actually here seeing it against you can see how much difference it makes when you see it with the white paper behind it. It shows the colour much more, doesn't it? Worth bearing in mind. Okay, and then I'm going to sort of cover that area, and then before it dries completely, I'm going to just add this deeper shade just to give it a bit of shape. And then the palest of this pink, no, that's too pale, let's go for the middle shade. I just want just a hint of a blush on the cheeks. I think that's enough there. a little bit of the darker colour up here where the shadows would be. I'm just using a very light touch here. I don't want to saturate this with any more than I have to, because the more saturated it is, the more it's going to spread out. Putting another layer of the same colour over the top, of course, will also deepen it. So yeah, look, I've gone, it's coming over there. I'm going too near the edge and I'm saturating it too much, so I'm going to learn from that and just keep well inside that line. And give a bit of shape there by going over again in the same colour. Very subtle, it looks even more subtle on camera. I could just use the chisel tip to cover this quite quickly. It's not so controllable though. Just keep well inside that line again. I'm just going to take that deeper colour and just carefully add a bit more of that here. It's already feeling quite dry, so now let's just put another layer of that inside the eye there. Give a bit more shape. Obviously her face shape isn't realistic. Her eyes are very far apart. So you've got to have a bit of artistic license. And then I want that little bit of the pale pink just to give her a bit of blush. Blend it in with that lighter colour again, but not going too near the edge, just being a bit delicate with it. A little bit more of a blush there. And maybe a little bit of a pink nose. Blend that out. I think it's probably enough though, it doesn't need too much. She looks pinker on one side than the other, so let's add a bit more here. That works, I think. Some of that blush colour has gone up into the eye, but that's fine, that actually is quite realistic because the eye whites aren't white anyway, are they? So it looks like there's where I made that first boo-boo where you can see it's bled out just slightly. And then I realised that, and I've stayed inside the line on this side, and you can see what a difference that's made. So I stayed a good millimetre or two inside the line. On the side of caution, I'd say, because you can always add more later. Now I think I'm going to give her, what colour hair shall I give her? It'd make her look like our actual Georgie was when she was little. And I'm thinking, although I plan to stitch the hair, it might be an idea to colour the main part of it in. So if any little bits of it show, it will be that showing through, not the fabric, so you won't really notice it. What colour does that come out? That's not a bad colour for what Georgia's hair used to be. So let's do that, and I'm going to keep it again inside the line. And I'll go back and add more if I need to later. Now what I've got to be careful of is not to go, and this is especially the case if you're using water-based, with these alcohol markers, they've probably already evaporated away. But if you're using something water-based and this area is still wet, don't work right up against it, because one will bleed into the other, and that's what I did with the bit that I showed you earlier. So this is going to be embroidered over, and then I'm going to bring some of the embroidery floss out to the surface and plait it, so you've got kind of three-dimensional hair, which I think could be really fun. So I'll just bring that down to there, it doesn't need to go any further. And this is just, as I say, it's just so that if a little bit of the fabric is still showing after I finish stitching, it won't be obvious because it won't be bright white. So I'm using the brush tip now and just like feathering it out. It doesn't really matter too much what it looks like in this case, because it is mostly going to get covered with stitching. Could just use a chisel tip and cover this pretty quickly now, I guess. And staying away from the very edges. Our Georgia actually had brown eyes, but I really love doing green eyes, so sorry George, I'm going to do green eyes. So I've used one shade of green on one side, and I might even use a shade of blue on the other side just to make it look really different. There's this really pale blue, let's just try. Just makes it look more interesting. With the pens, I would say same thing. You want to make sure you pick a pen. If you're going to be colouring over, you want to make sure you pick a pen that's going to work with what you're using. And that's all I need to do for now. Now let's just put the rest of her skin tones in. Make the neck a little bit darker because it's in shadow. I'm going to carry on like this and colour. I'm going to colour in the rest of her arms now. Let's leave that slightly inside the lines. In a minute I'll just check if it hasn't bled out to fill up to the line, and I'll add a bit more. I'm just being really careful about it. This, whatever this is called, is pretty good for a fair skinned sort of Caucasian kind of colouring. I feel like I want to put a little bit of shading on the arm just to make the neck not look so dark. I expect that's bled out a bit now, you see. Oh, shouldn't have done that, shouldn't have done it. Interesting again to look at the reverse side, which is almost has a kind of watercolour effect, quite pretty. Yeah, I'm definitely getting some feathering on the lines, but nothing that's gonna bother me. That's gonna go on there like that, and then I thought I'd do some shoes and tights. I'd colour them in. Definitely could stamp them on fabric, but I'm going to colour them, I think. Could be pink shoes and bare legs for this one. Yeah, let's go pink shoes and bare legs for this one. Go over it with the yellow. That's now making it bleed out more. So I'm going to give that a couple of minutes just to completely dry off, and I'll come back to that one. Meanwhile, let's start on the other leg. Not this leg, because they'll bleed together if I do that. See, look, I've messed that up, but we're not going to panic. We'll be fine. Okay, so I need to do the same as I did to that, but a bit more carefully. Try and not touch the leg where I started on that. Just didn't realise quite what a bright pink this one is. I made a right hash of that. I might have to let it dry and go for a darker pair of tights or something to cover up that. Yeah, that could still work. Okay, I need to let well alone for a minute, and I'm going to start on my butterflies. And my intention was that the pink I thought I was picking up was going to pick up on the pinky reds in there, and this is going to pick up on the goldeny colours, but this has gone a bit funny, but it's okay. All is not lost. We'll be fine. So I'm going to kind of go all over this butterfly, but leaving a bit of a border in the palest shade of this golden yellow colour. And I'm just going to leave this alone for a minute, let that dry off, and go on to another one. And I definitely want to add some stitching to these butterflies as well. I'm going to leave the bodies because I'm going to do them like with bullion knots or something. What I could also try doing is using my Inktense pencils with, but not activating them with water. If I activate them with hand gel, alcohol hand gel, I've got some aloe vera gel which is supposed to be particularly good for doing it, and that way it activates the Inktense the same as water, but it doesn't spread in the same way as it does with water, so I might try that too. I think I'm going to have to do something about these shoes later. I may even end up stamping them over a little scrap of patterned fabric and stick them over the top. In fact, I might even just do that now and be done with, because I think that is going to annoy me what I've done there. So, but you know, it's always it's always retrievable. Even this bit here where I did the blip is beginning to look much less obvious now. I finally found the soft pink I thought I was using originally for the shoes. So I've done that for the tights, and then I stamped the shoes again on a plainish part of this fabric so it would all coordinate together. I've just used a little dab of Pritt Stick to stick those on until I get to stitching on them. So now I'm just going to take my time. I'm going to outline stitch these. I'm going to add some decorative stitching and things to the butterflies. I'm going to have fun with the hair. I might try some bullion knots and things. I definitely want to try that thing of bringing out the floss to the front and making little plaits with it with little bows. I'm going to give her a little beaded necklace. I might still see if there's room to embroider some words on here just for fun, but I quite like it just as it is. And I think I need to do some grass and things in the front here just to give her something to stand on probably. Yeah, but I think that's probably enough for today, just to give you an idea. It's probably a bit strange really to show a stamp set for the first time properly and do something a bit different with it, the stamping on the fabric, but I just thought it was fun to show it, you know. There are so many different ways you can use these stamps, and as I mentioned earlier, you haven't got to buy my stamp set. You know, have a look at all the stamp sets that you've already got and see if you can find different uses for them, because it's really fun, and you know, gives me an excuse not to get rid of them. So now I'm gonna try and make myself a thumbnail. I'll get rid of this. Let's use the new one for the thumbnail. Let's strategically put it over my blip. I don't think my blip's going to really show in the end, so I'm not worried, but I don't want to showcase it. I reckon that'll work. Make it work. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that. A bit of a better look at my Georgie stamp set and one of the many ways that you can use these kind of stamp sets. So I will come back and do some card making and junk journaling and all kinds of other things you can do with these sorts of stamp sets. A few more stitching ideas as well, different ways of using the different elements in a stamp set to create backgrounds to stitch into, to make little scrolls and things like that. That's a really fun thing to do as well, something that Maggie Morris got me into actually. But that's it for now. I'm going to, it's late in the day, I'm going to see if I can get this video cobbled together, and then I need to get these stamp sets listed in my Etsy shop. As soon as they're ready to go, they'll be in the description to this video. It's been so long since I put anything in my Etsy shop, I can't even remember how to do it, so it's probably going to take me a while, and I got to get those prizes sent off as well. Okay, right, thanks very much for watching. Do let me know what you think of my Georgie set, and if you've got any ideas for other different ways of using these clear stamp sets that so many people like me have. We've got a big stash of them and they're not getting used. Do please feel free to share them in the comments. Always love to share ideas and inspirations. That's what this community is all about. So that's it from me for today. Quite enough waffle. Enjoy the rest of your weekends. Oh no, it'll be weekday by the time you see this. Have a great week, and I'll see you again really soon. Bye.